Onoda travels to Sohoku High School on a bicycle and thinks about how he cannot wait to go to Akihabara after school. He takes an off-the-road track and listens to some cringe music out loud, but suddenly a car comes on the road, due to which he falls sideways. The car driver Takahashi hurriedly drives the car away after giving Onoda his card, while his young master Amazumi comments there's no way Onoda was actually riding the bicycle on such a steep path, so he was probably pushing his bicycle instead. At school, Onoda discovers that the anime club has closed down due to the lack of members, which saddens him to no end. He comes across some girls, and one of them, named Miki, tells him that he should take the bus if he wants to go to Akihabara. He reveals that he is going by his bike, and as he rushes away, he keeps thinking about how nice Miki was. A girl approaches Amazumi and tells him that she saw his last race in middle school, in which he scored second, but he walks away from her like a Sigma Chad. He decides to file his bicycle club joining application later, and thinks about how he lost his last race against a player named Midasuji. He gears up and takes his bicycle to the main gate to start his practice on the mountain roads, and just then, Onoda also joins him. He tries to convince Onoda that he shouldn't bike through the gate because the slope is very steep, due to which his speed can increase a lot and he may end up falling, but Onoda doesn't listen to him. He starts riding his bike and Onoda follows him, but just like his prediction, Onoda loses control and falls down. Onoda keeps acting like a moron, so he leaves him on his own and continues his practice up another steep hill. Soon, he sees a biker at a distance, so he increases his speed to compete with the biker. But turns out it's just Onoda who is smoothly riding the bike up the hill. Meanwhile, the official bicycle club team reaches Sohoku High after doing their practice. Later at night, Amazumi continues his practice on an exercise machine at home and keeps grinding hard even when his bicycle falls over. He takes a bath and reminds himself that he will become the fastest man on earth. The next day, Onoda tries to sneakily plaster posters around the school to recruit members for the anime club, but soon comes across Miki, so he runs away. Miki follows him and tells him that she has already investigated him, so she knows who he is. She asks him whether he really rode all the way to Akihabara on his bike, and he reveals that his bike chain broke on the way. She thinks that he couldn't go to Akihabara, but he tells her that he did go to Akihabara and that his bike chain broke on the way back. Later, Miki's friend Aya tells her that Onoda must be lying to impress her. Miki then joins the bicycle club as their manager and reveals she already knows about the members since her older brother Kanzaki used to be their captain. Amazumi then challenges Onoda to a race up the same hill that they met on the previous day. Amazumi explains that he wants to race him at the rear gate slope, while he thinks about how he wants to confirm that a pathetic loser like Onoda can never use a mommy bike to ride on such a road. Onoda tries to make an excuse that his bike isn't fixed, but nothing works with Amazumi. He then decides to give him a flat-out rejection, and Amazumi tells him that he will join his anime club in case he loses. This pumps up Onoda, so he instantly agrees to hold a race 4 days later, as his bike will be fixed by then. Later, Miki comes across the anime club poster that Amazumi is holding, and since they are childhood friends, she pesters him till he reveals all of the information about his race with Onoda. After school, she asks her brother Kanzaki, who is a bike mechanic, whether anybody can win a race on a mommy bike and whether it's possible to ride the bike from their school to Akihabara. He flat out says no to both of her queries, and 4 days later both Onoda and Amazumi reach the venue for the race. Amazumi tells him that he will give him a 15 minutes head start on the 5 kilometers course, and a bunch of girls along with Miki come to spectate the match. Miki tells Onoda that he can appear cool if he wins, which really motivates him, and their race begins as Onoda races ahead first. Amazumi waits behind while Onoda pedals ahead and slowly starts gaining speed. Due to the cyclometer that Amazumi gave him, he realizes that his speed is around 25 kilometers per hour, which he never noticed while biking before, and after 10 minutes, he reaches the base of the slope. He decides to go ahead rather than waiting for Amazumi, while all of Amazumi's fangirls pester him to start the race early so that he doesn't lose. Finally, when 15 minutes pass, he speeds towards the school and passes by everyone at a very fast speed. Onoda slowly rides upwards on the hill and thinks how Amazumi may have trouble reaching him, but to his surprise, Amazumi reaches him in just 10 minutes and even passes by him, which shocks him. Miki and the girls ride with Kanzaki to see the outcome of the race and come across Onoda on the way, who tells them that Amazumi has already passed him. He looks bummed out, so Miki decides to help him out. She adjusts the height of his bike's saddle and informs him that a good height can help him use more of his powers. He gets on the bike again and surprisingly starts racing much faster than before. Miki comments to Kanzaki that Onoda has a chance at winning due to his unique pedaling style, And even Amazumi realizes that Onoda has a unique pedaling style which focuses on cadence and generating more rotations. According to him, only pro bikers can have such a style, while Onoda races ahead and reminds himself that he has to win in order to recruit Amazumi to the anime club. He reaches near Amazumi soon enough, and Amazumi compliments his skills for reaching so far. Amazumi then increases his speed and thinks about how Onoda cannot possibly increase his rotations more in his mommy bike, but once again to his surprise, Onoda increases his speed and catches up to him. Amazumi and Mickey both notice that Onoda's bike has a smaller front gear than usual, which means he cannot increase his speed without putting in more effort, and Mickey comments that his parents must have put a smaller gear on his bike to stop him from adventuring far. They all realize that it's very surprising that Onoda was able to go to Akihabara every week on such a bike, and soon Onoda comes side by side to Amazumi. He gets triggered to see a no-brainer nerd competing equally with him, so he raises his bum, and by putting all his weight on the pedals, he increases his pace even more. Onoda starts slowing down due to low stamina, but realizes that he doesn't want to lose at any cost, so he gets pumped up and pedals hard, which closes their gap. With only one turn left, Amazumi accepts the fact that Onoda has very exceptional talent due to his leg power plus his cadence, and that he only lacks stamina due to less training. Suddenly, he passes on a gap on a drainage cover which makes him stumble, and his speed decreases, so Onoda takes this chance to catch up to him. Amazumi yells at Onoda that why he is trying so hard since he can never win, and Onoda replies that he wants to revive the anime club since he doesn't have any friends. At the end, Amazumi wins the match by a few paces, and Kanzaki gives Onoda some water to revive him back from the dead. Mickey and Kanzaki compliment his skills and tell him how his bike has a shorter gear than usual bikes. The Bicycle Racing Club members who were also watching the match discuss the race, and Onoda bikes back to his house as he thinks about how Amazumi will never join the anime club now. The next day, Amazumi tells him to keep the cyclometer and asks him to join the bicycle club since he has the skills for it. Onoda hesitates as he doesn't like athletic clubs, and Amazumi tells him to join the club if he has the determination to win and race faster than everyone else. Afterwards, Amazumi's classmates comment on how distant he is, so Onoda defends him in front of them. After school, he bikes to Akihabara faster than before due to his raised saddle, and a random dude compliments his bike at Akihabara. The random person named Naruko drags Onoda around at a toy store and even borrows money from him to buy an action figure. He reveals that he recently moved from Osaka, due to which he doesn't know anybody, and calls Onoda a nice guy for helping him out. He also tells him that Osaka is filled with bike factories since everybody rides bicycles there, and that he can tell from looking at Onoda's rusty bike that he has been its partner for a long time. Naruko then strikes up a conversation with a flashy-looking guy who has a fancy car, and the flashy man throws a cigarette butt at Onoda bicycle, which pisses off Naruko. He tells him to apologize to Onoda, and when Onoda tries to stop him, he even yells at him to care more about his bicycle. The flashy guy rides away even when Naruko tries to chase him, and Onoda realizes that Naruko is actually a nice guy, so he invites him to tour around Akihabara. Naruko refuses his offer and tells him that he's going back to Chiba, so Onoda offers to ride with him. They both then ride their bicycles together, and on the way, Naruko spots the flashy car again, so he begins chasing it on his bicycle. He hands Onoda a helmet for him to wear, and they both start chasing the car on the street, much to Onoda's worry since he's only used to riding his bicycle on the sidewalk. To Naruko's surprise, Onoda pedals very hard and crosses him on the road, so he decides to show off his own skills, and Onoda tells him that he cannot pedal any faster. Naruko realizes that Onoda's mommy bike plus small gear is hindering his speed, but he also notices another additional gear installed on Onoda's bike to boost his speed. After the race with Amazumi, Mickey installed a second gear in Onoda's bike to help him in road racing, and in the present, Naruko comments that someone really must want him to enter the world of racing. On Naruko's instruction, Onoda changes his gears and speeds ahead of Naruko in an instant. They both start to get close to the flashy car, but as they reach a bridge, strong wind starts to blow, which hampers Onoda's pace. Naruko tells him to stick his bike behind his to form a drafting, which is common in the cycling world. According to him, it can help him in blocking wind, so Onoda takes his advice and brings his bike close to Naruko's bike, which stops the wind. Their speed collectively increases, and as they reach near the car, Onoda changes gears and speeds up to the car. He realizes that he really likes the wind on his face, and rather than giving the cigarette butt to the car guy, he even crosses the car on his bicycle. The next day, Onoda realizes he is really hungry despite eating normally. He then rushes to the school cafeteria to buy bread, but he keeps getting pushed out while the other students end up buying all the lunch. He comes across Naruko, who is also haggling lunch, and Naruko later tells him that he also joined Sohoku because it has a bicycle racing club. He tells him how he had a race some time ago and tells him all sorts of things about the bicycle race, which excites Onoda. He tells him that the end of the race is always very fulfilling and that a single race consumes up to 5,000 calories too, which makes Onoda realize that he is mostly hungry these days due to increased cycling. He tells Onoda that he would be really good at cycling, so he should try it out, and even Onoda begins to think that he should join such an athletic club, but when he tries to kick a football, he immediately falls down. Seeing this, Naruko invites him after school at the base of the rear end slope, and when Onoda reaches there, he comes across the bicycle racing club racing up the hill at a very fast speed. Even Amaizumi trails behind them, and Naruko then tells him that bicycling doesn't require a lot of athleticism like the other sports because the bike is providing most of the sport, so the person only needs to pedal well to be good at it. The bicycling club members discuss how they are going to have a ceremony which is going to make all the pathetic first-year players leave. Onoda gets a flat tire on the way back and Kanzaki somehow ends up picking him. He tells him that the bicycling club is aiming to win Inter High this year, and that most of the members couldn't even ride up the slope during their first year. He then gives him a guidebook on bicycling, and the next day, Naruko reveals that he's joining the club the same day. Onoda tells him that he has decided to join the club and that he wants to see if a pathetic person like him really has potential. They both visit the bicycling club with another classmate of theirs who keeps yapping about being a bicycle pro, and Naruko and Amaizumi officially meet at the club too. Amaizumi notices that Onoda is really unlucky if he's joining on that specific day, and Kinju the captain tells all the new joiners that they are all going to race at a 60 kilometers course soon. Some new joiners start freaking out while Onoda becomes happy to race with Amaizumi and Naruko again. Naruko and Amaizumi throw digs at each other on who will win the race, and the others rush out to get ready for the race. Kinju comments how 2 players are going to be chosen for the Inter High tournament based on the result of the race. Some reports gather at Hakone Academy's bicycle training facility since Hakone Academy was the winner of last year's Inter High tournament. Meanwhile, Onoda starts his warm-up by putting his bike on rollers, which surprises everyone since it's difficult to ride on rollers with a mommy bike. Kanzaki gets stuck in the traffic and Kinju tells Onoda that he cannot have proper equipment and supplies, so he is unlucky. Onoda doesn't mind this since he has always ridden a mommy bike, and before the race begins, Kinju tells all the first years that they will follow behind them in a van to pick up any player who cannot finish the race. The race begins, and for the first phase, they all ride through the town and follow Amaizumi according to Kinju's instructions. One of the bikers starts racing ahead even though Kinju told them all to follow Amaizumi in the town premises, and he declares that he wants to win at any cost. Another player urges Amaizumi to increase his pace and even accuses him of cycling slowly for Onoda's sake, so Amaizumi explains to him that they are deliberately starting slow to warm up and that the actual race will begin once they reach the countryside. The others think that they will all be left behind once Amaizumi reaches the countryside, and Naruko advises Onoda not to give up since the race has only just begun. He tells him that an opportunity along the race course will arise which only he can grab, so he should wait for it. The riders start increasing their speed slowly while Kanzaki picks up the senior members, and they rush ahead to follow all the riders. As the riders approach the countryside, Naruko and Amaizumi change gears and race ahead of everyone as their real race begins. Naruko races ahead first and Amaizumi changes gears to speed up to him. Onoda also shifts to his outer gear to increase his speed, but in a second, all the other members race past him. They explain to him that their bikes have 20 gears due to which they can control their motion easily too, while his bike only has 2 gears due to which he can never compete with them. To test the theory out, they even tell him to race with them up to a vending machine at a distance. Naruko and Amaizumi discuss how Onoda cannot possibly reach them, especially on his mommy bike which is not built for speed. Meanwhile, the other players pass by Onoda, and when he tries to pedal too hard, his chain gets loose due to which he falls. The recovery van arrives, so he starts pedaling again to avoid them, but he ends up falling again. Kinju and Miki deliver the road racer bike that they have brought for him and tell him not to lose hope since he can still race on the road race bike now. Onoda becomes hopeful again, and he tells himself that he can make more friends with the help of his bike. He gets on the road race and begins cycling, although it's his first time on such a bike. His speed keeps increasing, and he tells himself that he can race with everyone else with the help of such a bike. The race continues as Amaizumi and Naruko enter the mountainside after passing the countryside. The others follow behind them and soon Onoda enters the mountainside too. A passerby observes that Onoda was the fastest rider among all the riders, and even the club members discuss how Onoda isn't even slowing down at all despite climbing up the hill. He crosses the first player and then the second player, which shocks them both since they were thinking he's just a beginner. Onoda leans downward when he makes turns, which makes the bike's pedals touch the ground, but he doesn't notice this and keeps racing ahead. The club members discuss how his technique is a mess, but he is still racing with such a passion. Onoda then passes by the player named Kawada who had broken the rules in the beginning, and this frustrates Kawada, who starts whining about being left behind. The deep mountains area starts, in which Onoda doesn't slow down, and the members discuss that Onoda can never catch up to Amazumi and Naruko since he is 8 minutes behind them. Another senior member called Makishima comments that he will have to increase his speed even more to reach the duo. Kinju instructs Kanzaki to drive up to Onoda, and he then hands over his water bottle to him. He tells him to latch it onto his bike and drops a truth bomb on him that he can never reach Amazumi and Naruko at this speed. Onoda argues that he will pedal faster, but Kinju tells him that due to his limited stamina, he won't be able to finish the race even if he pedals faster. He tells him that he has done a great accomplishment so far at arriving third in the race, and then tells him to choose whether he wants to drop out by chasing Amazumi and Naruko, or whether he wants to come in third position only. Onoda instantly decides to chase the other two players, so Kinju advises him to increase his cadence by 30 revolutions per minute if he wants to be successful. Onoda starts pedaling even faster, and Kinju advises Kanzaki to keep tailing him rather than going to the back. The others comment how Onoda will be the greatest beginner in the history of cycling if he manages to achieve this. Naruko begins to slow down slightly as they both race up the hill, and he tells Amazumi that he's only slowing down for his sake. He thinks to himself how Amazumi doesn't know that he isn't good at riding bikes in mountains and how he is studying him so attentively. He realizes that Amazumi is cycling just a few distances away from him to assess his abilities, while Amazumi thinks about how the path is going to change to a downhill slope, so he should change his tactics soon. He speeds ahead of Naruko, so Naruko becomes competitive too, and they both start competing against each other seriously. On the way they come across a foreigner who cheers them on wildly, and they both stop when he suddenly falls. They help him up, and he advises Naruko to focus more on his back muscles. He also advises Amazumi to focus on his pedaling, and they both realize that he must be their coach. He tells them that another boy is cycling up to them, so they both jump on their bikes and continue racing. Onoda finally catches up to Amazumi and Naruko, and he yells at them to ride together with him. They all ride together while Kanzaki picks up the club coach, and they all marvel at Onoda's skills since he actually managed to catch up with them. Kinju comments that his real battle has begun now since the path ahead will be a struggle for him. Naruko and Onoda speed ahead, and Amazumi decides to play along with their game even though he knows it's inefficient to speed up at this part of the race. Onoda gets tangled up in the tree branches and even hits the cracks in the roads, which makes Naruko realize that he must have raced straight up to them. Amazumi also notices that Onoda doesn't have a good rhythm, and Naruko becomes fired up, so he changes his stance and starts sprinting up the hill with even greater speed. This surprises Amazumi, who was thinking Naruko sucks at hill climbing, and Naruko recalls how he used to practice racing at Mountain Rocco to overcome his weakness. Amazumi changes his gears too since he doesn't want to lose to a yapper box, and races up to meet Naruko. To both their surprise, Onoda doesn't get left behind. In fact, he keeps up with their speed while smiling all the time. Coach points out that the reason Onoda is so charming is because he has fun when he is cycling, and even Amazumi realizes that he shouldn't underestimate Onoda too much or else he will lose. He increases his speed by 10% while Naruko notices that the path is going to become steeper soon, due to which he starts slowing down. Since he is a sprinter, he can't climb properly on steep paths, so he starts slowing down, and Onoda slows down to keep up with him. Naruko tells him to race ahead and that he will cross them both once they reach a flat terrain. He even grabs his hand to pass his spirit to him, and Onoda races ahead to reach Amazumi. The others think that Onoda may even cross Amazumi based on his increased cadence, but Kinju points out that Onoda can never beat Amazumi since he lacks some basic qualities to become a climber. Onoda recalls that Naruko told him that whoever reaches the mountain peak first is called the King of the Mountains, who gets a special jersey. Meanwhile, Amazumi increases his pedaling even though it's not something he would normally do. Mickey recalls how he and Amazumi met each other as kids and how he used to be a bratty player, but he soon started changing and became cool-paced. She notices that whenever he races with Onoda, he becomes excited like in his old days, and Onoda reminds himself that he has to cross Amazumi at any cost. He increases his cadence by 30 revolutions per minute more and reaches Amazumi's side. Sakamichi and Amaizumi race side by side, and with only 500 meters left to the end they turn on their Super Saiyan 3 mode. Naruko regrets not seeing Amazumi's face while Onoda recalls how Naruko told him to use a secret trick at the end by clicking his gear shift twice. Kinju comments that Onoda still lacks something specific which is required to win, and with just a few hundred meters left, Amaizumi gets up from his saddle to increase his speed. Just then, Onoda also breaks out smiling as he recalls Naruko's advice that he should change gears the moment Amaizumi gets up from his seat. Onoda changes 2 gears and gets up from his side to do the dancing move just like Amaizumi. This shocks everyone since it's not a beginner move and since Onoda only learned it a brief amount of time. He races ahead of Amaizumi through dancing which motivates Amaizumi, and he races up to him as well. They both collide with each other but Onoda regains his balance and puts in all his effort to cross Amaizumi. He recalls Naruko's advice telling him to put all his sweat and tears to win against Amaizumi, so he screams like a banshee and pedals even harder while Amaizumi recalls all his struggle in the past, so he pedals harder too. At the last moment, Onoda yells out his favorite anime song called Princess like a certified nerd and crosses the peak of the mountain a few paces ahead of Amaizumi, which makes him the king of the mountain in cycling lingo. All the others celebrate his success at winning the mountain stage, which seemed unbelievable from the get-go, and Amaizumi tells himself that he still needs to achieve something. He races ahead while Onoda begins to feel dizzy and falls off his bike due to lack of stamina. The seniors rush to his side and Mickey tells him that he beat Amaizumi at the mountain peak. A senior named Tatakoro tells him that he needs to get up to reach the finish line, while Kinju picks up Onoda and tells him to rest up since his race is finished now. He even struggles to walk, and when he notices his fallen bike, he crawls towards it and starts freaking over it like a broke man. Naruko then high-fives Onoda as he crosses the mountain peak and tells him to leave the race to him. The coach then tells him to change into the Mountain King jersey so that he doesn't catch a cold and gives him some lame wisdom that he just gave them a true road race. He shows him the scenery from the top of the mountain and asks him whether he had fun cycling, so Onoda tells him that it was really fun. They all then ride in Kanzaki's van again to follow the other racers, and they come across Naruko, who has caught up with Amaizumi. Naruko and Amaizumi race neck to neck, and Kinju tells Onoda to become stronger through practicing so he can join them too next time. Finally, the race ends as Amaizumi wins the race, and they both collapse on the ground out of exhaustion. Onoda decides to practice more and to pedal more to reach the level of Amaizumi and Naruko. The next day at school, Onoda's muscles hurt all over even when he walks, and Mickey tells him that it can't be helped since he put in so much effort. She reminds him of his extraordinary feat to reach the mountain peak first and tells him to be confident in his skills. Another first year named Sugimoto, who came in third, starts showing off his non-existent skills, and Mickey's friend Aya notices that Onoda has become more confident than before. Amaizumi meets up with Kinju and informs him that a first year named Kawada has dropped out. Kinju then tells him that he's responsible for all the first year students. Meanwhile, Naruko whines about losing to Amaizumi and vows to train harder to beat him. Onoda practices cycling in early morning, and Naruko also join him after finishing his morning practice. He tells him how he has started training and practice to beat Amaizumi, and after telling him not to reveal this to Amaizumi, he leaves. Soon Amaizumi joins Onoda too and tells him that he has been secretly training to defeat Naruko. He tells him not to reveal this to Naruko and also tells him not to skip today's practice as per Kinju's instructions. Afterwards, Naruko and Onoda meet up at the club room where they come across a huge hole behind one of the posters. Makishima tells them that he made the hole and walks away. During practice later, Kinju announces that each first year will be grouped with another player, and they will race together around the school. Naruko races with a third year named Tatakoro, who uses his muscle power to compete with him, while Amaizumi competes with Kinju himself and struggles to catch up to him. He puts in all the effort, but to his surprise, Kinju takes the lead easily. Onoda gets grouped with Makishima, who is also a mountain climber like him, and before they begin, Makishima tries to relax him. They both begin their race, and Makishima advises him to take it slowly since they can compete at the rear end slope instead. He then tries to make casual chit-chat with Onoda, who finds Makishima really scary and disinterested in him. They both reach the rear end slope and Makishima speeds up, but he realizes that Onoda is really scared of him, due to which he isn't cycling properly. He attempts to make casual chit-chat with him and then tells him to follow his cycling. Makishima then does a very unusual dancing style to climb the mountain, which motivates Onoda, so he races after him. He compliments his cycling style and tries to copy it, but he falls down. He keeps trying to copy it, but he falls down instead, and Makishima shares his sob story that during his first year, all the seniors used to correct his cycling style, so he decided to perfect his own style to conquer mountain climbing. He advises Onoda to focus on his high cadence style as well, and afterwards Makishima reveals that he made a hole in the wall to hide his training record, which he used to write down on the wall. During the individual races, Naruko loses to Tatakoro and asks him to race again with him. He loses again, so he asks him to race with him again. The next day Naruko tells the others that he ran 10 laps with Tatakoro, out of which he won in the last 2 only because Tatakoro was tired then. Even Amazumi ran 3 laps with Kinju, and Sugimoto tells them both to go shopping with him after school. Amazumi then comes to their class and tells them that the Chiba preliminaries are happening soon, which will determine Chiba's representatives for the inter-high tournament. Onoda skips school with Amazumi and Naruko to go see the preliminaries, and since he is on his mommy bike again, the both of them carry his bike. They reach the Makuhari course, where the first group has already begun racing laps around a circuit course. Since the total race is of 50 kilometers, the first years watch as 2 other school teams lead the race, and after 50 seconds, Sohoku's team passes by them. They all notice the first years too, so Tatakoro yells at Naruko to watch closely. He yells out that they will win the race by a minute, which shocks them since the team is already very behind. Soon the leading team of Kashiwa East notices that Sohoku's team is approaching them, so they try to speed up, but Tatakoro comes neck to neck and intimidates them to move away. He uses extraordinary power to pave his path, and the whole team follows behind him, which makes Kashiwa's members realize that they are coming across Sohoku's famous move called the bullet train. Kinju tells them good luck for the next year, and they cross Kashiwa East with butter-like smoothness. Soon the final round gets announced, and this time Sohoku's team leads the race. Afterwards, the first years hear the announcement that Sohoku has won, while Onoda realizes that the third years don't even need their useless bums at this point. Naruko gets up to practice since he can't even beat Tatakoro at this point, and even Amazumi gets up to practice to dethrone Kinju from the position of an ace. They both start arguing, and then they tell Onoda that they have to defeat the third years before they graduate. Soon the third years join them, and Amazumi asks them why they didn't tell them about the preliminaries. They tell them that many other schools also came to watch the match to gather data for inter-high, so they didn't want to reveal the other members' strengths so that they can use them in the future. Meanwhile, somebody calls Midasuji and tells him about the performance of Sohoku's team and how it's so disgusting that they only have a tiny team of 3 members. Later, the seniors tell the first years that since the inter-high tournament is in 2 months, they are going to have an overnight trip to train them. Hakone Academy's cycling team gets to know about Sohoku's win while their first-year member Manami practices cycling in the hills. Sohoku's team heads to a sports center in Izu where they can practice all they want, and Onoda gets carsick on the way. Since they have a strict schedule, the team leaves Onoda by the roadside so that Kanzaki can pick him up later while they head to Izu without him. Onoda's wallet gets left on the bus as well, and he collapses on the road due to having no water. But just then, Hakone's Manami comes across him. He gives him water to drink and even notices that he's a cyclist by the way Onoda gulps down water. He reveals that he loves cycling in the hills since he grew up in the mountains and introduces himself. He hands over his bottle to Onoda and then rushes off to attend school. The whole team arrives at the sports center, in which all the first years get grouped in one room, and Amazumi tells them to all get ready soon. They all then visit the racing course, which is filled with slopes, hills and ups and downs. Onoda recalls Manami's words as he looks at all the hills, and he thinks about how he wants to ride bicycle with him. Kinju tells the team that 3 of their club members didn't come with them intentionally due to last year's brutal practice. Kinju then gives them all lights to bike at night and tells them to bike for 1,000 kilometers in the next 4 days. He also modifies the bikes of some members and tells Naruko that he has removed his handlebars, which make it difficult for him to move at high speed. He also removes the shift gears of Amazumi's bike, which means he has to cycle with a fixed gear, and he also modifies Onoda's bike but doesn't inform him. As they all start their practice, Amazumi and Naruko struggle to cycle as usual while Onoda notices that he can't properly climb on his bike. Kinju says that the first years are out of the inter-high tournament if they can't finish their training even with their modified bikes, and as Naruko and Amazumi finish their initial laps, they realize that it may be impossible for them to train in such conditions. Onoda struggles to ride his bike on the upward slope, and even Sugimoto, the most talentless man on the team, passes by him. Makishima spots him, so he stops and tells him that Kinju has modified his bike. When he still doesn't notice anything unusual about his bike, Makishima reveals that his bike has very heavy tires which not only hinder his climbing skills, but the tires don't also roll properly because they are very old. He advises him to stop whining but to overcome his hurdle once and for all to succeed in the future. He also advises him to shift down 2 gears which makes it easy for him to cycle at a slow pace. The first day of training finishes with Izumi and Naruko finishing 250 kilometers, while Onoda only finishes 165 kilometers. On the second day of the training trip, Makishima gets up early before the first years to get ready and chit-chats with Kinju about the first year's performance so far. Later, Tatakoro eats food as if it's his last day on Earth and forces Onoda to eat more food too due to their intense training. Kinju then advises the first years to plan their intervals according to their abilities and reveals that he plans to start cycling 30 minutes after them since he's cool like that. Naruko and Izumi start riding together and they both throw digs at each other about losing like a bunch of 2-year-olds. Onoda takes his first break as he finishes 250 kilometers and Sugimoto gives him calorie jellies to replenish himself. Even Tatakoro takes his break with them while Naruko and Izumi keep riding on in the intense heat. They both tease each other as always and Izumi tells Naruko to take an interval before him. Just then he accidentally lets his water bottle fall and when he gets down to pick it up, he almost falls down due to his exhaustion. Naruko picks up his water bottle instead and Onoda tells him that he will win against him and everyone else despite the modified bike and heat, so he should stop pitying him. Naruko throws the water bottle away and soon they resume their training. They both continue their training along with Onoda even late at night and afterwards they all take baths together. Naruko almost falls asleep and Onoda even drowns in the bathwater out of exhaustion, so Naruko has to save him. They all then come across Kinju who tells them that they have an interview offer from a well-known magazine who wants to interview one athlete from each team participating in Inter High. He asks Naruko whether he wants to give the interview since he likes to stand out, but Naruko refuses his offer and tells him that he only wants to focus on training hard. At Kyoto Fushimi High School, Midasuji orders the captain Ishigaki to give the interview. Ishigaki recalls how in the past, Midasuji strolled in their club and announced with an ugly creepy face that he will be the ace of the team. He challenges Ishigaki to a race since he was the former ace, and then defeats him with a 3 minutes gap using a borrowed bike. Ishigaki accepts him as the new ace and he tells the team that he needs 6 players in their team so that they can win all the events in the Inter High tournament and crush the players of Hakone Academy. In the present, at Hakone Academy their players also participate in the interview while their player Tadu teases Makishima on the call. Tadu thinks about how he can't wait to win against Makishima during the Inter High tournament. The team then does an interview with the reporters and their captain Fukutomi tells them that the team members are all aces. Later, Tadu tells Manami to visit the sports center where Sohoku is training to witness the unique cycling style of one of the members there. The next morning, Onoda gets up earlier than everyone else and gets ready to start training. He starts thinking about how he is the slowest member since he has only finished 390 kilometers, but he reminds himself to focus only on his training and nothing else. He begins his laps and keeps doing them even though everyone else is still asleep. Kinju comes across him running laps and he notices that Onoda has gotten faster despite the heavy tires in his bicycle. Even Onoda notices that he is finishing his laps faster than before and he realizes that his body is getting used to the heavy tires. As he reaches a hill, he shifts 1 gear up so that he can finish his laps faster and finish his 1,000 kilometers on time. He climbs up the hill and starts thinking of how fun it is, but just then, he notices another person riding a bicycle early in the morning. He begins chasing the bike and soon notices that it is actually Manami who gave him water before. They both greet each other and Manami reveals that he is here to scout Sohoku's team and that he sneaked in from the backside. He reveals that he is from Hakone who won the Inter High tournament last year and then asks Onoda whether he's participating in Inter High. Onoda hesitates to answer since he's not sure about his participation and he then asks Manami to race with him to the top of the hill. They both begin racing together and as Manami races ahead, Onoda paddles harder to keep up with him. Manami goes ahead and again Onoda pedals faster to reach him. Manami soon realizes that Onoda's strength is his cadence and that he can easily catch up to him although he is slow to start. He also thinks to himself that he has found the interesting climber that Tadu was talking about and that he finds Onoda really interesting since they both have similar climbing styles. With only a few meters left to the top of the hill, Onoda tells him that he will return his water bottle if he wins and he starts increasing his speed to overtake him. Manami also notices that Onoda isn't wearing racing shoes, which would help in his pedaling, and he starts taking Onoda more seriously, so he speeds up. He ultimately wins the race, and Onoda later compliments his skills like a smitten fangirl. Manami thinks about how racing shoes hook themselves to the pedal, which increases the speed of the rider, and he even notices the heavy tires on Onoda's bike. He tells him to return his bottle to him at the Inter-High tournament during summers, and even makes a promise before rushing away. Later, Naruko and Amezumi wake up and hurry up to start practicing. The seniors all watch their dramatics while Manami discusses the new climber with Tadu. They both realize that Manami has scouted somebody other than Makishima, and Onoda tells himself that he needs to reach Inter-High to compete with Manami. The third day of training continues as Onoda ponders over the fact that he never even thought about participating in the Inter-High before. Naruko and Amezumi argue with each other about copying each other's styles, and they come across Onoda on the way. Onoda asks them what he can do to participate in the Inter-High tournament, which shocks them, and Naruko replies that he even doesn't know the answer. He comments that Kinju's thinking is simple and that they have to complete 1,000 kilometers of training first to prove to him that they are capable enough. This gets Onoda going, and they all continue their training with the goal to reach Inter-High in their minds. Tatakoro starts training as well, and Kinju notices that everyone, including the 2 second years, have also settled, and so he decides to make a few changes. Rather than displaying the kilometers that each player has covered, he changes the display system to the number of laps covered, which makes it seem like they are all competing in a race. As expected, Amezumi and Naruko increase their speed to cover more laps, and Onoda decides to pedal faster too, since it's the only way to overcome the obstacle before him. The three of them increase their pacing, so they start covering more laps gradually, while the second years maintain their steady pace since they have already covered more kilometers than the first years. Amezumi declares to defeat the second years by eventually passing them, and Kinju tells Makishima that the second year members named Tashima and Aoyagi know what it takes to reach and win the Inter-High. He comments that the first years cannot possibly win if they underestimate the second years. Meanwhile, Sugimoto notices that Tashima and Aoyagi are cycling very closely together with their tires almost touching, which is only possible due to their perfect teamwork and effortless coordination. Later in the evening, the first years finally reach the second years during their 147th laps, and Amezumi asks them to let them through so that they can overtake them. Tashima points out that the first years look really tired, and he then gives a hard push to Aoyagi, which makes him speed up, and he rushes ahead. The others realize that the second years are using a breakaway technique in which one player breaks away from the group to cover more distance so that he can win. Aoyagi runs 5 kilometers ahead of them, and Tashima comments that they were deliberately waiting for them to catch up so that they could show them they will win. Naruko comments that they will still win nonetheless, and he tries to rush ahead, but Tashima blocks him, which almost makes Naruko fall. Aoyagi keeps increasing his pace while Amezumi tries to increase his speed, and once again Tashima blocks him. Tashima then teases him by calling him an elite player, and tells him that they both used to compete together in middle school, but he never won while Amezumi always won. He keeps whining about being an ordinary person, so Naruko overtakes him on the flat slope. Just then they reach an upward slope, which makes Naruko slow down, and Tashima declares that they will all lose this game in 3 laps. Naruko doesn't take the bait. Instead, he uses his sprint climb move to race upwards and overtakes Tashima. However, Tashima easily catches up to him and tells him that he has been conserving his leg strength so he can always block and chase him. They reach near the top, where Tashima shows them how far away Aoyagi has gotten from them. In the past, Tashima comes at the 43rd position at his last middle school cycling tournament, and tells himself that he is an ordinary pathetic person who can't even win, so he should quit. He decides to quit cycling in high school, but one day he comes across Aoyagi, who is cycling, so he starts talking to him and somehow ends up joining the bicycling club because he felt the same spirit in Aoyagi too. They both didn't have extraordinary talent, so they usually couldn't complete laps, and soon Kinju tells them that they can't participate in the Inter-High Tour tournament. They both get motivated to participate in the Inter-High after watching it in person, and because they suck individually, they decide to team up to strategize and win together. Soon, due to Tashima's strategies and Aoyagi's cycling, Aoyagi starts winning the matches, although it was always their combined victory. Soon they all reach another hill, and Tashima thinks about how the first years can never pass him now. Onoda tries to think of a plan to pass Tashima since the other two are continuously failing, but his monkey brain fails to think of anything. Tashima tells them that they cannot win against him now since it's nighttime, and they are not allowed to pass anyone at nighttime due to the risk of getting hurt. He reveals that Kinju will officially tell them not to pass each other in a little while and that they only have half a lap in which they can cross him, otherwise they will lose. Onoda starts ranting about how he wants to see Naruko and Imezumi go to Inter High, and that they should break through even if he himself is many laps behind. They both tell him to stop using his non-existent brain cells and that they will use him to break Tashima, so he should only focus on his cadence. They then give him a push which propels him forward and he chases Tashima with a renewed spirit. Meanwhile, Tashima, who had already predicted this would happen, reminds himself that Aoyagi is approaching them soon, so he only needs to last for a while. Based on his observation of Onoda, he knows that Onoda can only last up to 40 seconds when he goes into full power mode, so when Onoda increases his cadence to ride neck to neck with him, Tashima decides to just hold on for 40 seconds because he thinks Onoda will slow down after that. He maintains a high speed for 40 seconds and thinks he has won, but to his surprise, Onoda maintains his high cadence and overtakes him after 40 seconds. Tatakoro takes an interval and discusses with Kinju how the positions of first years and second years at the end of their lap will determine the winner. Tashima gets triggered to see Onoda passing him, so he tries to chase him on his spider legs, and just then, even Naruko and Imezumi surpass him. He goes into denial mode to see his plan not working while Onoda almost loses consciousness, and Naruko holds onto him to stop him from falling. He reminds him that they will all reach the Inter High together while Naruko and Imezumi think about how they can't compete with the third years with their current stamina. Aoyagi approaches Tashima, who tells him to leave him behind, but Aoyagi replies that he will pull him along and that they will reach Inter High together. Aoyagi and Tashima start chasing the first years together with a synchronized style, and Makishima takes an interval too to see the outcome of the race. Tatakoro declares that the second years will win due to their experience and improvement in the last year. Meanwhile, the players reach the downward slope, which is the last part of the lap in which they have to ride in darkness. Naruko and Imezumi gear up to speed even more in the dark, and as they start descending, Onoda starts feeling scared due to their high speed in the dark. Tashima and Aoyagi keep up their coordinated movement, which makes them speed up even more, and Tatakoro recalls how the both of them remain strong even when the other second years drop the club. They keep chasing the first years, and just then, Onoda stumbles on a road bump due to which his speed decreases and the second years pass him. Naruko decides to fall behind to help him, but Imezumi scolds him that he should keep aiming to win, and that it's a battlefield in which they can't afford to show any weakness. He reminds him that Onoda wants them to go to Inter High, and that other than his cadence, another extraordinary thing about him is that he has an extraordinary will due to which he will persist and win. With only 200 meters left, Tashima tells himself to overtake the first years, but to his surprise, Onoda comes close to his side even though they had left him behind. Onoda even smiles as he is chasing them, which creeps out Tashima, and Aoyagi yells at him to stop looking back. He reminds him that it's the last time they can go to the Inter High with Tatakoro. Meanwhile, the last turn towards the finish line comes and everyone prepares themselves to race faster at the last 100 meters. The atmosphere changes as everyone gets into a dancing stance, and Onoda starts to get left behind because he hasn't done a dancing pose before. He moves his hands to the lower handlebars, which automatically shifts his weight downwards and goes into a dancing pose. Suddenly his speed increases, so he catches up with the others, and with 100 meters left, the second and the first years rush towards the goal side by side. At the last moment, Kinju thinks about how the racers have to give their blood, sweat, and tears during the last meters to make the final sprint so that any one of them can win. All the second and first years collide with each other and force their way forward, but at the end, the three first years cross the finish line first with a distance of just a few paces ahead from the second years. They don't stop there but keep pedaling since the 1,000 kilometers aren't finished yet, and especially since they believe that the second years will overtake them. Meanwhile, Tashima and Aoyagi collapse on the ground, and despite their muscle cramps, they try to get up to continue riding and to participate in the Inter High. Finally, Tatakoro stops them and tells them that their injuries will get serious if they continue riding, and that they still have another year in which they can improve themselves to participate in the Inter High. They all cry their hearts out while the first years finish some more laps, and Onoda thinks that he may be able to finish the 1,000 kilometers. Kinju tells them about the fate of the second years, so they all rush to meet them, and Tashima tells them that they must all help the third years win the Inter High at any cost. The fourth day of the camp begins in rain, and Imezumi struggles to cycle due to faulty gear, and brakes. Kinju thinks about how bikers have to ride in every kind of weather, whether it's snow, rain, or scorching heat. Soon Kinju and Tatakoro finish the 1,000 kilometers first, and even Makishima finishes this distance after a while. As the day passes, Imazumi and Naruko get left with 30 kilometers, while Onoda still has 120 kilometers left, and Kinju declares that they all have to complete 1,000 kilometers before midnight at any cost. Onoda keeps slipping up in the rain, and at one time his pedal ends up breaking, due to which he falls. Naruko and Imazumi fail to take any notice of his broken bike, so Onoda drags his bike upwards and somehow rides on the downward slope. The seniors don't notice his bike's condition as well, and they discuss how he can't finish the distance since his speed has decreased. Fushimi comes across Onoda and realizes that his pace slowed down due to his pedals. He gives him his own race shoes to wear, which can hook themselves to the pedals, and tells him that he will require less power now to pedal. Onoda equips himself with the new cleats, and Fushimi fixes his pedals. Onoda then starts pedaling, and his speed keeps increasing more and more as he exerts less power to pedal. Soon the day passes, and he covers the remaining laps faster than before. With just a few kilometers left, everybody cheers Onoda on, and he also recalls how everybody helped him and motivated him. With only 10 minutes left, Onoda finally does his last lap as he finishes his 1,000 kilometers, and everybody celebrates his win. Onoda heads to school a bit later than usual, and he recalls how Fushimi gave him his cleats to practice, which can also attach to his pedals. He then sings his favorite anime song like a creepy otaku and rushes to school. At school, everyone talks about the famous duo of Naruko and Imazumi, who are going to enter high as first years, while Sugimoto tells Miki that he could only complete 650 kilometers based on his physical condition. Miki tells the duo that they look stronger, and when Onoda finally reaches them, she tells him that he seems stronger after the training camp too. He starts explaining to her how he only finished the 1,000 kilometers with the help of others. They all then take makeup classes because they had to skip classes to attend the training camp, and they all keep thinking about their training. Onoda thinks about how he was even thinking about training when he was watching anime. He recalls how Kinju told him that there are many prerequisites to qualifying for inter-high tournament, and that he will only take the best team to inter-high, just like Hakone's team. Before he can reveal who is included in the team, Tatakoro calls out Kinju, so he leaves in a hurry, making Onoda think that he isn't in the team. The players all take the makeup classes with a lot of effort, and finally, for their last class, their coach comes in and tells them to go bike to relax. Everyone runs away while Onoda whines to the coach about being useless. The coach tells him that Kinju plans to make the strongest team with Onoda included, and then hands over the inter-high jersey for him to wear. He tells him that his unpredictability makes him an asset, and Onoda rushes to the team with the jersey to confirm whether he's really a part of the team. Kinju confirms this fact and tells him to start training for the inter-high tournament once and for all. Kanzaki tells Kinju that he has got the right idea to include Onoda in the team. Later they all practice cycling, in which Imazumi and Naruko overtake Onoda. Tatakoro reminds Onoda to chase them both, and Onoda starts feeling the weight of everyone's expectations. He keeps thinking whether he will be able to reach everyone's expectations, and soon even Kinju approaches him. He tells Kinju that he will do his best and keeps cycling forward, but in his mind, he keeps overthinking and overcomplicating things, due to which he feels like he doesn't have any strength. Everyone finishes their training while Onoda trails towards them very slowly, and they all notice that Onoda is about to fall down in a gutter. Onoda doesn't pay attention to his surroundings, so Kinju speeds towards him and catches him before he can fall forward. He tells him that he doesn't have to do his best since cycling is a team sport, and that they will all work together. The Sohoku team then does a huddle where they all yell out loud, and Onoda finally starts to feel like he belongs with the team. At Hakone Academy, Fukutomi gets called to watch the competition, which will decide their lineup for the inter-high tournament, and they all discuss how Manami and another strong second year named Kuroda has a chance to participate in the inter-high. Manami runs away from his class rep, who wants him to give handouts to the others, and bunks on his duties to join the tournament, which will decide the sixth and final member for the final team. The members discuss how Kuroda was also an athlete in middle school, while Manami is an unknown member. The race begins, and both players keep up a slow pace in the city premises. Soon Kuroda starts to pick up pace, but Manami doesn't follow him, which makes the other members think that Manami must intend to overpass Kuroda during the mountain climb. Manami keeps up his pace during the city premises, while Kuroda keeps going ahead, and Fukutomi notices that Manami is 2 minutes behind Kuroda at this point, while there's only 10 kilometers left to the match. Manami's teammate tells his class rep that Manami is competing in a race to become the first ever regular first year. In the past, the class rep who is also Manami's neighbor tells a sick Manami that he should stop skipping classes and even takes him out on a cycling date since cycling isn't strenuous like all the other sports. Manami struggles a lot as he cycles with her, but he still keeps going on, and although they never cycle together after that, class rep recalls how Manami came to love bicycling afterwards. In the present, Manami enjoys his connection with nature and feels alive as he cycles upwards on the mountain slopes. He increases his speed and soon catches up with Kuroda, but Kuroda blocks him so that he doesn't pass through. Kuroda keeps strategically blocking him, and even Manami admits that he's a very skilled climber, but he tells Kuroda that he will soon pass him at a straight slope. Just then, a gust of wind blows and Manami takes advantage of the wind to accelerate, due to which he passes Kuroda finally. Manami wins the race ultimately and becomes the 6th member of the Hakone cycling team, which will participate in Inter High. Sohoku's first years visit Makishima's huge house with Tatakoro, where he warns them not to touch anything. Tatakoro goes through his food stack, and later they all watch a video of a road relay race which is happening on the Hakone Trail, where they will have their race in the Inter High tournament. Makishima tells them about the difficulty of the course and how they have to compete with 120 racers over many hours. He further comments that just giving their best isn't enough, since Inter High is a 3-day race, and in which Fukutomi fell down last year, due to which even Kinju fell down with him. 1 year ago at Hiroshima Prefecture, Fukutomi and Kinju race ahead of everyone during the 2nd day of the Inter High tournament. Fukutomi tells him that Inter High has been a very huge disappointment for him, especially since he used to race thousands of kilometers with his brother and father who were pro racers. He tells him that those who are struggling to reach him will eventually fail, and he then asks Kinju whether he's really strong enough to win against him. He speeds ahead, but Kinju easily catches up to him. Kinju then catches up to him multiple times, and Fukutomi begins to think that he really is strong since he is riding in such a heat with strong headwinds. Fukutomi keeps racing ahead even when there are strong headwinds, which makes Kinju wonder how he is riding in such pressure. As Kinju keeps trailing by his side, Fukutomi tells him that there's a steep slope at the end of their climb which he won't be able to climb due to exhaustion, and with 60 kilometers left, both players keep trailing each other. When there's only 5 kilometers left, Kinju reminds himself that he will win the 2nd stage because of his team's efforts, and even Fukutomi starts to feel a lot of pressure from Kinju. He tries to change his gear to speed ahead, and Kinju takes advantage of this movement to overtake him. This triggers Fukutomi, who thinks everyone else is inferior to him, so he panics and grabs Kinju's shirt from behind. Suddenly they both lose their momentum, and as their bikes collide, they both fall down on the road. Kinju still gets up despite his injuries and tells Fukutomi that he will win. He slowly starts riding towards the finish line with only 2 kilometers left, and at the end, 3 of Hakone's players reach the goal first. Kinju comes at the 69th place and tells his teammates that he fell by himself, but Fukutomi then comes to the team and reveals the truth. He apologizes for acting like a pathetic, desperate loser and reveals that he plans to withdraw from the race for the 3rd day to make up to Kinju. Tatakoro then punches him and starts arguing with him, but Kinju stops him somehow. He tells Fukutomi that he plans to ride on the 3rd day, and that if he doesn't win, his small steps will add together to give the team a victory. He declares to win the next year, and in the present, Makishima tells this story to all the first years. In the past, after the Inter High tournament, Tatakoro whines about losing because of Fukutomi, and Makishima gets a call from Tadu that Fukutomi is heading their way. They freak out because they think Fukutomi is coming to fight with Kinju, but when Fukutomi arrives, he gives the team some steamed buns and apologizes to them for acting like a loser. He and Kinju then ride cycles around the town, and he asks Kinju for a favor. He asks him to race with him so that he can become even stronger, and tells him that he will let him pass at the Inter High race if they are ever neck to neck again. Kinju then preaches some wisdom about playing fair and square, and in the present, Kinju once again declares to win the Inter High tournament with his team. Sohoku's team arrives at Hakone for the Inter High tournament, and Onoda starts to panic when he sees the hype and the rush at the venue. Even Amazumi looks pretty serious, and Onoda then starts freaking out about not practicing receiving supplies during the race. Makishima assures him that 2nd years will handle the supplies and that he just needs to remember their ultimate goal, which is to win. This reassures Onoda, and he also reminds himself that he has to give back Manami's bottle to him. Meanwhile, Manami rides to the venue on his bike because he missed the official bus, and Onoda gets handed his official number tag for his jersey. Hakone Academy's players arrive with all the glamour and blitz, but Onoda notices that Manami isn't with them. Soon Hakone players go to the stage, and Manami rushes with them since he arrived late. Onoda rushes to the front when he sees Manami and waves his water bottle at him, so Manami also takes the mic and announces to Onoda that he is here. After this cringe reunion, the reporters interview Hakone's players while Amazumi looks around to search for Midasuji, who defeated him in the middle school race by putting a 5 minutes distance between them at the end. Just then, Midasuji goes to the reporters to explain his unusual bike, which has a higher than usual saddle and longer handlebars. He then jumps on the stage and declares that he will crush Hakone Academy. He notices Amazumi in the crowd, so he calls him weak in front of everyone and tells everyone about how he handed his bum to him by defeating him with a 5-minute gap. Amazumi replies that he won't use underhanded tactics like him, but he will defeat him this time fair and square, to which Midasuji reveals about how he told Amazumi in their last race that his mom died, due to which Amazumi's speed decreased. He then declares that he would never drip out of the race even if his mom died, and Naruko steps forward to defend Amazumi too. As things start to get heated up, Fukutomi tells Midasuji to settle his score on the road, so he leaves along with his team. Midasuji then gets into an argument with his previous team captain when he orders him to use honorifics with his name and tells him to serve him. Amazumi then declares to defeat Midasuji at all costs, and later Miki and the others gather supplies for the team. She hands over the water bottle to the players before the race begins, while Onoda starts to get nervous as usual, so Makishima assures her that he will keep an eye out on him. Onoda falls down, so another player helps him out and he finally starts feeling less nervous and more excited. Miki then tells him to have fun, and finally the inter-high race begins. Before the race, Onoda tells his mom that he's going to be away for 3 days for a race, but she believes that he's just talking about some anime like a weeb. He tells her again that he's in competitive racing club, and she asks him whether Naruko and Amazumi will be going with him, which reassures her. The inter-high race begins as the front of the pack starts moving, and as usual Onoda begins feeling nervous. Finally Naruko begins pulling him as well, and Amazumi tells him that the initial race is just a parade for the spectators, which means the real race will start after that. Naruko comments that they should aim to come first for all the 3 days, and Amazumi argues that a road race only has one winner at the end. They all decide to come first by overthinking even the third years, and soon Manami also cycles behind to tell Onoda that they will have a real battle soon in the mountains. Finally, the racers cross the bridge overpass, after which they all start their races in actuality. The cyclists start increasing their speed altogether, and even Naruko crosses Onoda to join Tatakoro. Since the first day route consists of a 50 km flat surface, all the sprinters get ready to ace the race first, and even Tatakoro and Naruko decide to win the race since sprinting is their prime quality. All the school's top sprinter cross everybody else, and Tatakoro tells Naruko to wait till they have all crossed them before they can increase their own pace too. Kanzaki picks up Miki and the other players to take them to the points where they will give the supplies to the players, and she tells Sugimoto that there are markers at various positions which take note of each player's position, which also get communicated to the other players so that everyone remains informed about what's going on in the race. Finally, Naruko and Tatakoro start speeding up once all the sprinters have already gone ahead, while Fukutomi asks his own sprinter named Izumida about his feelings about the race. The other players notice that Tatakoro and Naruko are butting heads as they are racing ahead rather than moving behind each other, which makes them think that Sohoku has some kind of special strategy plan, but in reality Naruto and Tatakoro just argue with each other about coming first. With the first checkpoint just a few kilometers away, a sprinter named Shibata races ahead of the pack, but soon Naruko and Tatakoro reach him and soon cross him. They keep fighting with each other about leading the race, while Kinju tells Onoda that he put the two of them together because he knew their competitiveness with each other will not make them lose to anyone else. As Tatakoro and Naruko keeps butting heads, Izumida from Hakone reaches them smoothly and tells them that he's the fastest man of Kanagawa. When they try to speed up, he keeps up his pace with them, and he tells them that he's been training all summer to gain muscles for the inter-high. He then speeds ahead of them quickly and tells them that he's not even seriously racing them at this point. Tatakoro and Naruko try to catch up to Izumida, but he keeps accelerating ahead and their distance doesn't decrease, which makes them realize that he's the real deal. Meanwhile, Fukutomi cycles behind the pack to meet up with Kinju and tells him that his arrogance made him act out in the last inter-high tournament, but this time he will beat him fair and square with the help of his strongest team. Kinju replies that he has also created a flawless team to win the inter-high team, and that they will start by taking the first checkpoint. Fukutomi shows off that Sohoku's top sprinters cannot take the first checkpoint due to Izumida, and at the front of the race, Izumida tells Sohoku's players that they should have worked together to cross him. Just then, the path changes as strong winds start to blow in their direction and Izumida taunts their teamwork since they cannot even work together to overtake him. He tells them that they have failed as sprinters and he recalls how in the past, he used to fall behind all the other cyclists of the Hakone Academy. One day Fukutomi tells him to stop cycling like this and then another player later tells him that Fukutomi wants him to find his strength to become stronger. Izumida realizes that he should train his abdominal and back muscles to become stronger so that his cycling can improve, so he starts training his muscles rather than practicing cycling. The next time he bicycles, he races ahead of everyone due to his muscles, and Fukutomi then gives him the 5th spot in his team as the team's sprinter. In the present, Izumida keeps up accelerating towards the first checkpoint, and Fukutomi tells his team that although Sohoku's team is strong, Izumida will still take the first checkpoint because of his muscle power and single-mindedness. Kanzaki also drives everyone else ahead, and they notice that the other sprinters have fallen behind, due to which they have almost joined the pack now. They speed ahead to check who is going to cross the checkpoint first. Meanwhile, Tatakoro and Naruko keep arguing as they cycle side by side, which disappoints Izumida since he thinks their lack of coordination is costing them the match. Even with 100 meters left, they don't come up with a plan while Izumida keeps speeding ahead of them. Naruko and Tatakoro then suddenly throw away their water bottles to lighten their weight, and Naruko becomes serious as he zips his hoodie and changes his gear. He changes his stance and accelerates towards Izumida with the least air resistance, while Tatakoro also becomes serious. He takes in a deep breath of air and reveals that he has a stronger lung capacity compared to other athletes, which means he can perform better than them. He suddenly speeds up as he exhales and instantly catches up to Naruko. They both then overtake Izumida, who apologizes to them for underestimating them and calling them failures. Izumida finally becomes serious and he reminds himself that he can pierce through everything since he's the fastest and strongest person there is. He sprints hard to cross the other 2 players and overtakes them, so Naruko finally asks Tatakoro whether he will cover him so that he can conserve his energy. Tatakoro reminds him that he won't help him out since he is also competing with him, so they both yell out aloud and chase Izumida again. Izumida calls them worn-out spears, and with a few meters left, the 3 players give their best to beat each other. Izumida still pulls ahead of them, and Tatakoro asks Naruko whether he has ever lost other than his race with Izumi. Naruko reveals that he used to lose as a kid due to his small height, due to which he had to work extra hard. He asks Tatakoro the same question, so he replies that he came in the last position in his first-year race. In the past, Tatakoro hands in his resignation to Captain Kanzaki and tells him that he cannot keep cycling because he dropped out of the training camp on the 2nd day, and because he keeps losing in every race. He whines that he cannot lose weight, and Kanzaki tells him to keep cycling, especially if he wants to quit. He advises him to get better at sprinting, which will make him improve in other aspects of cycling too, and afterwards, when Tatakoro struggles to climb up, Kanzaki yells at him that only he can define his limits. Tatakoro then makes a breakthrough as he keeps riding and pushing his limits, and Kanzaki tells the coach that a sprinter can never improve and win if they haven't faced loss before. In the present, Tatakoro recalls his sob story and he and Naruko sprint even harder than before. They reach Izumida with only 250 meters left, while the rest of the racers keep up their steady pace much behind them. Kanzaki and the others finally spot the front sprinters and notice that Izumida is riding with Tatakoro and Naruko neck to neck. Izumida still thinks that he can never lose to worn-out spears of Sohoku, while Naruko recalls how in the past he came across some cyclists, which ignited his love for road racing, and how he used to lose every single match because of his height. He recalls how he used to lose every race time after time in middle school, and how he used to lie about his races to his classmates out of embarrassment. In the present, he keeps recalling his losses, and finally, with the power of his feelings, he sprints faster than before along with Tatakoro. They both reach Izumida once again, and they all sprint ahead neck to neck with the checkpoint in front of them. Just then, a strong wind blows which knocks some cones in their way, and at the last moment, Izumida uses his strong reflexes to avoid the cone that comes in his way. Tatakoro and Naruko charge straight through the cones even if they get a few injuries, and finally reach the checkpoint first, with Tatakoro in the front and Naruko coming in second. The rest of the pack gets to hear the result of the first checkpoint, and it sets the mood for the game as Sohoku's team cycles to the front. Hakone's players let them through, and soon Izumi starts leading the whole pack. Onoda starts to get nervous, and Makishima reminds him that their sprinters secured this position for them, so they shouldn't disappoint them. At the front, Tashima and Aoyagi congratulate Tatakoro, and even Kanzaki does the same, which makes Tatakoro a bit emotional. Tatakoro then gives his own water bottle to Naruko, who threw away his own before, and Naruko tells him that he only let him win because he's the senior. They keep bantering with each other and Izumida asks them both why they didn't dodge the cones that came their way. Tatakoro explains that they both were only thinking of winning while he was thinking about falling or tripping. He tells him that their experiences have taught them to aim for victory at any cost while he has been training for the Inter-High alone, due to which he hasn't participated in many races, and as a result he doesn't have much hands-on experience. Izumida realizes that he wasn't good enough, due to which he lost, while the top sprinters slowly start rejoining the pack as all the racers approach the Hakone mountain. Makishima tells Onoda to be ready since the climbers will race with each other now, and Midasuji and Manami also prepare themselves. Soon Naruko and Tatakoro rejoin the Sohoku team, and as they all bike towards the mountain, Kinju tells the team about their plan moving ahead. He tells Naruko and Tatakoro to move behind the team to rest their legs, and Izumi to lead the team ahead till the mountain. He then tells Makishima to race ahead to blow away all the other climbers, while he tells Onoda to lead the pack when they will reach the mountains. Onoda starts panicking, which is his only signature move at this point, and when Kinju tells him that only he can perform this role, he becomes confident and declares that he will do it. They all enter the town area and the other climbers start racing ahead as the dynamics of the race change. Tadu from Hakone cycles ahead to greet Onoda and Makishima and starts ranting about his non-existent skills and charm. He tells Sohoku's team that they will win since they have thoroughly trained in Hakone. Soon they all approach the feed area, after which there's the mountains in which Onoda will lead the team, but the team notices that Onoda is missing amongst them. Behind the pack, a group of riders fall down on the ground collectively, and Naruko begins worrying that Onoda may have fallen down as well. Kinju tells Izumi to lead the team till Onoda returns. Meanwhile, Onoda wakes up in between the fallen riders. He starts panicking about being left behind, and he even struggles to put his chain back on his bike. Soon other riders begin to rejoin the race, and when Onoda finally gets back up, he realizes that he's the last racer in the whole match. Sohoku's team gets to know that Onoda is at the very last, so Kinju immediately changes his tactics and tells Makishima to lead the charge. Makishima tells him that he will lead the team to the peak just like last year as they all enter the mountains. He starts thinking of a strategy which will last the team in the Hakone mountain. Before he can charge ahead, Naruko stops him and reminds Kinju that Onoda is a climber who may reach up to them, so they shouldn't leave him behind. He leaves the planning to Makishima, and Makishima tells Naruko that they have to maintain their pace if they want to win, which means Onoda will be left behind. Soon Hakone's team approaches them, and Tadu tells Makishima that they should compete with each other to settle the title of King of the Mountains, while Manami can lead their team. Sohoku's team realizes that Hakone has two climbers, which puts their own team at a disadvantage, and as Tadu keeps yapping, a random climber crosses him. Tadu then decides to teach him a lesson, so he uses his special technique called sleeping climbing to increase his speed. He crosses the climber in no time, and then once again he challenges Makishima to race to the peak with him. He reveals that he has been ordered by his team to take the second checkpoint, but he wants to defeat Makishima before that, and Makishima tells him that he cannot accept his challenge. Tadu reminds him that they have to settle their score since they always win equally, and even Makishima starts feeling all kind of things, but he tells him that he needs to lead his team so he can't race his team. In the past, Tadu comes across Makishima 1 year ago and gets amazed by his unique dancing style. Makishima wins the race against him, and after that they soon start competing with one another race after race. Tadu wins some matches, and finally at their last match Makishima gets a flat tire just 1 kilometer away from the goal, so Tadu tells him that they will settle the score in the Inter-High tournament. In the present, Tadu keeps begging Makishima to race with him since it's their last race as third years, and Makishima even gets up on his saddle to presume his dancing stance, so Tadu speeds ahead, but at the last moment, Makishima sits back down. Another Hakone rider named Arakita then tells Tadu that Makishima cannot race with him because Sohoku doesn't have another climber, and he reminds him responsibility to take the second checkpoint, so Tadu finally speeds ahead. He keeps crying about not competing with Makishima as he accelerates ahead, and Arakita tells Sohoku that they made the right choice to not compete with them for the checkpoint. Makishima then tells them that the tide of the game will change in 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Miki and the others rush towards Onoda and give him his supplies. They then push him forward, and Onoda decides to overtake 100 riders to catch up with his team. Onoda starts pedaling and crosses the first climber as he reaches the mountain. He starts singing his favorite anime song, which gets him even more pumped up, and he speeds past 6 more climbers on the way. He reminds himself that he has to cross 100 total racers, while Tashima tells Sugimoto that it's not impossible for Onoda to reach the front. He reminds him that a loser like him usually only evolves when he is pushed to his limit, while Onoda keeps singing the cringe song as he keeps accelerating ahead. He reaches near another school's team who decide to block his path, but he overtakes them on a curve by passing them from the outside, which surprises them. He keeps yelling out the song lyrics which help him maintain his rhythm, and Makishima tells Arakita that the situation will change in 3 minutes since Onoda will reach them soon and that he's not the type of person to back down on his words. Arakita reminds him that no cyclist can reach them from behind since there are groups of riders behind them who have jam-packed the road, and just then Onoda reaches the group of riders. He realizes that he cannot break through them since the road is filled with riders, and his pace starts dropping as well. He then tells himself that he doesn't have to think too hard, but he only needs to act, while Izumi tells Arakita that Onoda isn't a proper ride, but he will definitely break through. Onoda notices the end of the course, which is the lining of the gutter, and taking a risk, he jumps on the edge of the gutter and starts racing ahead. Although the path is really narrow, he somehow starts speeding ahead and even uses his foot to maintain his steadiness at one point. He sees an opening, so he breaks in the group and races ahead to cross all the players. He finally reaches the front of the group to pass the 100th player, and to his shock he comes neck to neck with Midasuji, who tells him that his team was blocking the rest of the players. He tells himself that he can defeat Midasuji, and they both start racing with each other. Midasuji accelerates ahead, but Onoda catches up to him, so Midasuji decides to reveal his technique. He leans forward so that his face is very close to the ground, and after calling Onoda a small fry, he races ahead of him at a very high speed. Onoda reminds himself that he has a responsibility towards the team, so he increases his cadence by 30 revolutions per minute and speeds up even more. He crosses Midasuji, who calls him gross, but he keeps speeding ahead even when he starts having doubts about whether he will reach his team on time. Soon he spots Sohoku's team at a distance, so he joins his team again, and Makishima rushes ahead to compete with Tadu. Even Hakone's members become surprised to see such a pathetic looking dude catching up to them, and Kinju then relays Makishima's message to Onoda, which thanks him for being a climber. Hakone's other club members gather at one spot to cheer on their team, and the members tell the first years that it's overwhelming to ride with Tadu since he climbs up really fast as if he is defying gravity. They all then cheer as Tadu rides past them with a serious look as Tadu rides amongst them. The first years even ask him if he is feeling okay. He reminds himself that he has to reach the mountain peak, and he doesn't even pay attention to the group of fangirls that gather around to cheer him on. Finally, another ride starts to approach him, so he thinks that it's Makishima, but it turns out to be some other climber. He tells himself to abandon all hopes about competing with Makishima, and he recalls how they both even had a chat before the Inter-High about being in good condition to compete with each other. Soon another player starts to approach him, but he tells himself that he has abandoned all hope related to Makishima. The onlookers comment how the approaching climber has a different climbing style, so Tadu slows down, and finally Makishima comes into his view. Tadu yells out loud that he feels great now, and they both race ahead to race for the last 2 kilometers before the mountain checkpoint. Makishima tells Tadu that Onoda finally caught up with the team, due to which he could race ahead. Tadu tells him that he has to thank Onoda for making this reunion possible, and they both start competing to reach the mountain peak. The other climbers also drop out as the checkpoint gets near, while Mickey and the others celebrate when they hear that Makishima is competing with Tadu for the first position. Tadu starts ranting about how the sky is blue and how he is fortunate to be cycling with his Juliet. Just then, they reach the last kilometer point, so they both become serious and start seriously competing with one another to settle their score once and for all. Makishima uses his spider dancing technique while Tadu accelerates ahead, and both races collide with each other multiple times as they cover the remaining distance. They race with each other neck to neck, while Manami tells Onoda that they will also race with one another one day with the same passion, and will push each other to their limits. Makishima realizes that although he has already crossed his limit since he had to push really hard to reach Tadu, he is still burning with a passion. They both yell out loud like a couple of banshees as they cross the remaining distance, and although both of them have crossed their limits, they still keep racing ahead. Finally, they both cross the mountain checkpoint with Tadu as the winner, and Tadu then thanks Makishima for motivating him to run so fast. Kinju then tells Onoda to pick up Makishima with Naruko, and Tatakoro. Meanwhile, he and Izumi race ahead to compete with the other aces for the remaining 4 kilometers of the course. Kinju yells out that they are going to take the finish line, so Arakita yells out the same thing, and the duos of both the teams then rush ahead to compete for the finish line. Izumi recalls the efforts that each team member put in the race, and he cuts across Fukutomi to overtake him. Fukutomi also begins realizing that Amazumi is a smart cookie who shouldn't be underestimated, and as Sohoku takes the lead, they maintain their distance as they start riding downhill. Some bystanders comment that even if Sohoku is leading currently, Fukutomi and Arakita have never lost in a race whenever they have ridden together. Fukutomi asks Arakita whether he's ready, especially since the Sohoku's players are in plain sight, while Tadu tells Makishima that Arakita is a weird kind of player who gets tired too easily, but at major events, he chases his opponents with focus like an animal. Arakita chases after Kinju and Amazumi recklessly even as he hits a passing car, and even when his helmet hits the rail guard when he makes a turn. He closes the distance between them, so Amazumi strategically puts a few more paces between them so that they don't collide. In the past, Arakita breaks his elbow in middle school right before an important game, and later he joins a high school that doesn't have a baseball team. He then refuses to cooperate in the classroom and nobody sticks by his side due to his foul attitude. One day he decides to act like a damsel in distress, so he runs away to the hills in his scooter, and he comes across Hakone's bicycle racing club there. He then starts an argument with Fukutomi out of nowhere and even pushes his bicycle down, but Fukutomi doesn't take the bait, and instead tells him that he is strong because he likes to move forward. Arakita starts to get into a fight with him again, so Fukutomi tells him to settle his score with him on the road and challenges him to a race to the school. Arakita then races Fukutomi on his scooter, and to his surprise Fukutomi overtakes him as they ride downhill. Fukutomi then wins the race, and after that Arakita begins practicing bicycling like a crazy man. He struggles to keep himself steady, so Fukutomi advises him to look forward rather than looking downwards whenever he is on the road. Arakita decides to forget his past from then onwards, and in the present, he vows to take Fukutomi to the finish line. He passes by Amazumi and Kinju as he yells out loud like a gorilla, while Amazumi recalls how Kinju told him to work on himself during the 3 days of Inter-High so that he can grow as an athlete. Hakone's players still pass by him and he realizes that he desperately wants to win, so he catches up to them at the very last moment. With 500 meters remaining, Kinju and Fukutomi break ahead to compete for the last few meters, and just then Midasuji rushes in between them out of nowhere. Midasuji passes by the Sohoku team first, so Makishima comments that Midasuji cannot reach the finish line in time since he is too far behind. Onoda tells them all not to underestimate Midasuji, who is too strong. Meanwhile, Amazumi recalls his past and tries to crush Midasuji before he can reach Kinju. He tries to speed ahead, but since he used most of his leg power, he struggles to reach him, and Midasuji tells him that in order to win they have to forget about meaningless things like checkpoints, but rather the only focus should be on the finish line. As per his plan, Midasuji changes to outer gear when there's 400 meters left and rushes ahead at the speed of lightning, leaving Amazumi behind. He even thinks about how Amazumi is so gross for working so hard, and how according to his plan he will overtake the aces when there's exactly 50 meters remaining to the finish line. Midasuji catches up to Kinju and Fukutomi, but they speed ahead and both of them declare that they will win for the sake of their team. Midasuji keeps chasing them, and as they near the finish line he decides to reveal his second trick, which he showed earlier to Onoda as well. He leans downwards and accelerates ahead, due to which he catches up to the other two aces. Meanwhile, at the finish line all the spectators wait for the winners, and soon they spot Fukutomi, Kinju and Midasuji speeding towards the finish line. Kinju recalls how his teammates gave their best to move him forward, and he pushes ahead with their collective effort, while Midasuji gets triggered since he is not able to pass the aces at the last 50 meters. The three players give it their best shot and finally cross the finish line. Midasuji admits to his club members that the other two are in fact aces, while Kinju and Fukutomi also cool down as they reach their stations. The match authorities assess the results, and to their shock all three of the players have crossed the finish line at the exact same time. The announcement for the first day award ceremony gets made, and Tatakoro tells Onoda and Naruko to rest up since they can barely stand due to their shaking legs. Kinju, Fukutomi and Midasuji get the first comer tag, which they will wear during the second day, and up next Tatakoro gets the best sprinter award. He challenges all the sprinters to take this title from him if they can, and Makishima tells the first years that their team got 2 tags, which will help their team spirit in the longer run. Tadu gets the next award for the best climber, and he calls Makishima on the stage since they won the tag together. Of course Makishima doesn't go because he doesn't want to be a part of the cringe dramatics, and Manami also comes to greet Onoda. Tadu tells Onoda to become stronger and even compliments his eyes. He then tells Sohoku's team that they will ride to death the next day to come out as winners. Tatakoro suddenly becomes sick and tells Makishima not to reveal this to anyone else. Tatakoro tells Makishima that the team cannot afford to have a missing member because they have to win, so he will get better by tomorrow and participate again. He then asks him to lend his shoulder, and Makishima thinks about how an athlete cannot afford to have a wrecked digestive system. He comes back to his team and lies to them about Tatakoro's condition so that they don't get worried, but he keeps thinking about his condition and how the team cannot afford to lose him. Meanwhile, Imezumi keeps having an existential crisis because he couldn't win against his middle school rival, and he finally decides that he cannot participate in the inter-high anymore if he couldn't defeat an ugly face like Midasuji. He begins to leave and Kinju asks him whether he's feeling okay. He then tells him that he is really grateful to him for carrying the whole team to the first place. At Hakone's side, Fukutomi compliments the team effort and tells Arakita, Izumida and Tadu to rest their legs during the second day. He then asks Shinkai whether he is ready for the second day since he really didn't put much effort during the first day. Naruko and Onoda take a bath which refreshes them, and Naruko reveals that it was his first team battle. Onoda's mom then comes to meet him because she was worried for him, and Kinju tells her that Onoda did a great job. She still doesn't understand properly that Onoda is a bike racer, but she tells him to be strong for the sake of his team and to work hard for the remaining 2 days. She even asks Naruko and Kinju to take care of Onoda and then rushes off. Naruko then vows to win the inter-high for the 1000th time and even comments that it would be nice if they can cross the finish line first on the last day so that they get to be on the stage. Onoda becomes extra motivated to hear this, so he asks Kinju to give him any order for the next day no matter how harsh it is. The next day the players arrive at the venue to race the course, which is around 100 kilometers, and all the teams even get their photos taken. Onoda tries to look fancy for the pictures and he chases after his water bottle when it rolls away from him. He then comes across Ishigaki, who used to be the captain of Midasuji's team, and Ishigaki becomes very surprised to see Onoda since he competed against Midasuji during the first day and managed to cross him. The second day of the race begins with the same order in which the players crossed the finish line on the first day, and Onoda recalls Kinju's plan that since it's a long distance race, they will all race together as a team with rotations in the middle. Onoda gets instructed to take the team to meet up with Kinju, and as they all race ahead, Makishima realizes that Tatakoro isn't with them. Tatakoro remains still at the starting line even though everyone has left already, and he somehow musters up courage to start the race. He realizes that he only has 20% strength, and Makishima also realizes that Tatakoro won't be able to make it due to his sickness. He switches with Onoda to start leading the group, and he announces to the team that they are leaving Tatakoro behind. The team members start to argue with him about his decision. Meanwhile, Tatakoro struggles to even bike steadily, and Tashima and Aoyagi rush to his side to check up on him. He tells them that he's not feeling well, so they decide to push him up to the peak so that he can roll down the descent upwards and reach the team in time. The match authorities warn them that they will get a penalty if they push Tatakoro, and soon the other horde of players also rushes past them. Tatakoro realizes that he has been left behind everyone. Meanwhile, the others keep arguing with Makishima about his decision, so he finally gives in and tells them that Tatakoro is not feeling well, due to which he told them to abandon him. Onoda declares that they should all go back and help Tatakoro out, so Makishima gives him a reality check that he cannot possibly go back and then lead Tatakoro back to them in his weakened state. Onoda still requests to let him go, and at the back of the pack Tatakoro struggles to bike upwards. He soon spots Onoda on the road, and Onoda tells him that he has come back for him after getting permission from Makishima, and that Kinju gave him an order to lead the whole team to the finish line. Naruko and Makishima start racing downhill without Onoda, while Onoda leads Tatakoro up the hill, and to Tatakoro's surprise, despite Onoda's small body, he keeps the wind resistance at minimum, due to which he easily rides upwards on the hill. Another sprinter crosses both of them, and Tatakoro realizes that Onoda is keeping up a slow pace for his sake. Onoda then asks him whether he wants to overtake the sprinter, and to get his rhythm going, he asks him to sing the princess theme song with him. Tatakoro initially hesitates because he is not a pathetic weeb, but gradually gives in, and they both start singing the anime theme song like there's no tomorrow. They soon pass the sprinter with the help of their singing and keep singing their hearts out. Soon they spot 2 more climbers on the way, and Onoda announces that they will cross them too. Onoda leads Tatakoro as they both cross the climbers, and once again they spot a bunch of racers at a distance. He then tells Tatakoro to sing the theme song and to shift his gear when they reach the climbers to overtake them. Tatakoro listens to his instructions, due to which they both cross the racers, and he begins thinking that they may be able to reach their team after all. At the front, Hakone's team members reach Fukutomi, and to everyone's surprise Midasuji's team members also join him. Midasuji turns even uglier when his team joins him, and he starts throwing lame digs at Amazumi as if his life depends on him. He tells him that his team is not joining him anytime soon and that he can even join the train of his own team if he wants. He then makes fun of him for even considering this offer, and soon Midasuji announces to his team to switch to phase 3. The whole team switches into train position and accelerates ahead while they leave behind a triggered Amazumi who can't believe that he is being defeated. He realizes that Midasuji never considered him as his opponent, which makes him snap, and he starts crying. Kyoto Fushimi's team reaches Hakone's team, and Midasuji tells Fukutomi that they have passed the disgusting Sohoku's team to reach them. He asks him whether he should take the next checkpoint to prove who is the actual winner, and Izumida tells him to be respectful of his opponents. He calls Izumida weak since he was defeated by some like Tatakoro, and things start to get heated up as Midasuji tells his team to switch to phase 4. He rides to the front himself, and Shinkai tells Izumida to calm down since the other team is just playing with his emotions. He rides to the front himself and challenges him to a race till the checkpoint as Hakone Academy's official ace sprinter. They both speed ahead to compete against each other, and Izumida thinks about how Shinkai is the fastest man in the entire high race since he is Hakone's ace sprinter. He and Midasuji race ahead, and he then changes his gear to speed ahead. Midasuji catches up to him, and they both even cross the leading car as they keep up their race. Soon Shinkai passes by him, and Midasuji goes into denial mode since he cannot believe somebody can ever cross him. He starts having a mental breakdown, so he speeds up even more, but once again Shinkai easily accelerates ahead. In the past, Fukutomi and Shinkai get selected to participate in the Inter-High as second years, and when the senior asks Shinkai about his goals, he tells them that he wants to quit the club. He later tells Fukutomi that he will have to give up on a lot of things if he participates in Inter-High, and rather than listening to Fukutomi, he takes him to meet with his pet rabbit. He gets into an argument with Fukutomi again, and no matter what Fukutomi says, he refuses to listen to him. Fukutomi scolds him since he knows he isn't the kind of person who leaves his battles, and Shinkai tells him how he ran over a rabbit recently during one of his races. He tells him that he is now taking care of the baby rabbit whose mother he accidentally killed, and that he cannot possibly race now, so Fukutomi promises to talk to the seniors about him. Fukutomi then tells him to fight by his side next year as Hakone's ace sprinter. In the present, Sohoku's team finally gathers together with its 4 members, and Naruko pulls the team forward, but slowly the other teams start passing them. Naruko tries to speed ahead, and he then tells Amazumi to rotate and switch his position, but Amazumi doesn't pay any attention to him because he keeps having anger issues. All of them keep thinking about the 2 other members, and soon enough another team called Kumamoto starts to pass them due to their 6 members. They tell Sohoku's members that Onoda is pulling Tatakoro at the back of the pack, which makes all the members happy since they realize that Onoda is beginning to catch up to them. Kinju comes to the front to lead the team, and he tells Naruko that even an ace like him has to pull the others forward when the others are suffering. Amazumi has a moment of epiphany, and he recalls how he stopped racing a few moments before because he didn't want to compete any longer. Kinju then asks him to race for the sake of the team even if he has to ride in the back, and in the present, Amazumi tries to pull himself back together. Midasuji keeps making ugly faces at the front of the race as he tries to catch up to Shinkai, and Fukutomi tells Kyoto Fushimi's members that Shinkai will win the race since he has always been a fast sprinter with natural athleticism. Midasuji catches up to Shinkai and tells him that he was just acting about falling behind. He then asks him how it feels to run over the rabbits and whether he eats the rabbits once he kills them. He keeps yapping about the rabbits, and Shinkai comments that he already knows that he likes to research his opponents. He keeps accelerating ahead, so Midasuji rushes ahead of him and starts cycling on the right side. He reveals that he already knows Shinkai can't overtake anybody from the left side since he got into an accident with the rabbit. He keeps staying at the right side, due to which Shinkai fails to overtake him, and he recalls how he told his teammates about this weakness in the past. His teammates then advised him to just pass his opponent from the right side and that he shouldn't fret too much over it. In the present, Shinkai realizes that his only choice is to overtake Midasuji from the left side, otherwise he will lose the checkpoint to him, but when he tries to move from the left side, he gets a flashback of the rabbit and starts losing speed. Hakone and Kyoto Fushimi's members keep arguing, and Tadu and Fukutomi tell them that Shinkai would never give up, but he will overcome his weakness in the nick of time. Meanwhile, Shinkai enters his beast mode and he loses all rational thought as he starts chasing Midasuji like a wild beast. He apologizes to his baby rabbit in his mind and overtakes Midasuji from the left when there's only 500 meters left. He then races ahead and the distance between him and Midasuji starts increasing, so Midasuji takes off his thighs bands, which increases his speed even more. He then accelerates ahead and catches up to Shinkai at the nick of time. Both the players scream their lungs out to come at the first, and Midasuji keeps telling himself that he wants to have the final laugh after he wins and that he cannot lose to a fly. He leans forward to the maximum, and Shinkai thinks about how Midasuji's posture will make him lose since he is leaning too forward and his bike sensor is too behind. At the last moment, Midasuji pushes his whole body backwards, which propels his bike forward, and as both players cross the checkpoint, Midasuji takes the first position. The teams get to know about the result and soon they even catch up to the front racers. Fukutomi asks Shinkai whether he gave his best and then tells him to fall back into the pack. He tells Izumida to move to the front, and soon the teams reach the middle point to get their supplies and refreshments. Kyoto Fushimi leads the race, followed by Hakone Academy, and Sohoku's second years assure themselves that their team's 4 members must also be near. Sugimoto starts yapping that maybe Sohoku's team is exhausted at this point, but Teshima tells him to believe in the efforts of his team. Soon the Sohoku team reaches the feed zone where they get their supplies and water bottles, and Kinju tells Teshima that they will definitely reach the front in the second half of the race. Kinju tells the team that they will catch up once Onoda reaches them, and Makishima comments that the last part of the race is a climb towards Mount Fuji, so Onoda will definitely reach them since he's a climber. Onoda keeps up a steady pace till he finishes the flat surface, and finally when he and Tatakoro touch the hill, Tatakoro tells him to speed ahead since he must have been waiting for the climb. They both then speed up and initially cross another team on the way. Onoda seems to be having fun, which makes Tatakoro smile too, and they even sing the cringe anime song to accelerate even more. Soon they notice the rest of the Sohoku's team at a distance and Tatakoro starts crying. He thanks Onoda for pulling him along, and the team has its sentimental union as all players get together again. Kinju compliments his efforts, and the rest of the members also gush over his guts, while Izumi thinks about how Onoda changes the atmosphere of the team wherever he goes. The team becomes motivated to win once again, and Kinju orders everyone to start pedaling hard so that they can overtake Hakone Academy soon. At the front of the race, Hakone's team starts to fall apart as members stop racing together in a formation, while Kyoto Fushimi takes the lead, and Midasuji comments that the team is starting to crack since their ace sprinter Shinkai has lost. Shinkai starts slowing down, and Izumida thinks about how Shinkai has brilliantly raced all this time and how much he looked forward to racing with Shinkai when he joined the team himself. He yells at Midasuji that Shinkai would never lose to an ugly face like him, and things begin to get heated up as they both start arguing, but Fukutomi stops him. He tells him that the results speak for themselves, and Izumida cries out in frustration. Midasuji then tells his team to switch to phase 13, which makes his team panic, and they argue with him that they can't switch to phase 13 so soon. He tells them that they will do what it takes to reach the finish line, and even Tadu wonders how they will accelerate at this point since they are in the mountains. Kyoto Fushimi's team then changes formation as Ishigaki moves to the front, and the team rushes forward as they leave their sprinters behind. Their sprinters who pulled the whole team through the flat surfaces fall behind and eventually stop because they are too exhausted, while Fukutomi tells his team that his team doesn't need dead weight either. Fukutomi then races ahead with Tadu leaving behind Izumida, who thinks that Fukutomi has also abandoned his team just like Midasuji. The officials pick up Kyoto Fushimi's sprinters who cannot move any further, while Izumida realizes that Arakita and Shinkai are both looking very down. Meanwhile, Midasuji keeps yapping his mouth off to Fukutomi at the front about how racing is a sport for the strong. Fukutomi tells him that only the strong can survive in the race, and Midasuji then challenges Tadu to a race up to the next mountain checkpoint. He doesn't take the bait, and Midasuji then crosses the checkpoint by himself, which makes the spectators think that Kyoto Fushimi is going to win the match. Everybody starts cheering on Kyoto Fushimi, which makes Ishigaki think about how the crown has shifted from Hakone to their team now, even though they came at 9th place last year. In the past, Kyoto Fushimi's third years make light banter between themselves, and Ishigaki tells them that cycling is all about endurance as a team. Ishigaki then thinks about how the team changed when Midasuji joined and how they are merciless now. In the present, Midasuji tells Ishigaki to focus on his cycling and to abandon all his emotions for the sake of victory. He tells him that he still has a role to play and then announces to the team to switch to phase 14, in which all players start rotating places to accelerate even more. They keep accelerating, and as Ishigaki takes the lead of Kyoto Fushimi, Fukutomi and Tadu catch up to them. Ishigaki asks Fukutomi why he is still chasing them since they are exhausted at this point and cannot speed ahead for much longer. He reminds him that he needs an ace assistant to pull him till the end and that Kyoto Fushimi has 2 ace assistants, so they have more chances of winning. Fukutomi shoots back at him that his whole team is still a team of champions who won't lose to Kyoto Fushimi. Miki and the others discuss the latest outcome in Kanzaki's van as they wait on the road for the leading team, while Onoda assures himself that he will pull his team to victory. Izumida tells Arakita and Shinkai to stay strong, so Arakita yells at him to shut his mouth. He reminds him that he has been pulling Shinkai in this heat, so he is exhausted, and Shinkai then miraculously gets revived from the dead. He thanks Arakita for pulling him and they both cycle near Izumida. They all then discuss how they have stayed behind, and Manami tells them that he will pull all of them to Fukutomi's side. He then starts riding and pulling all the team members while Shinkai apologizes to Izumida for worrying him. Soon all the members approach Fukutomi, which surprises Kyoto Fushimi's team, and Fukutomi tells them that he had to rush up to stop Kyoto Fushimi from taking the lead. Manami then switches his position with Tadu to pull the team, and with 6 kilometers left to the finish line, the team prepares itself to take the lead. This pisses off Kyoto Fushimi's members, and one of its members named Mizuta rushes ahead to prove to Fukutomi that his team isn't a big deal, but Midasuji stops him in his tracks. He tells him to stay within his limits and also taunts Hakone's team efforts, so Fukutomi reminds him that there's also another team that will join the race, so they should be wary of them too. Just then Sohoku's team makes their entry with Onoda pulling the whole team, and Midasuji becomes triggered to see them since he thought they had already fallen behind. Onoda almost faints from exhaustion, so Naruko catches him and the others declare that the real race is just beginning. Kinju and Fukutomi greet each other like long-lost friends, and Kinju tells him that even if his team is exhausted, they will win due to their unbeatable team spirit. Once again Onoda begins to fall due to exhaustion, but this time Imazumi catches him and reminds him that he always used to pull the others. He tells him that they all understand his feelings and that they will all reach the finish line together even if he has to pull him all the way through. Hakone's team make a formation and start racing uphill, due to which they pass Kyoto Fushimi easily, so Sohoku's team follows their lead and Makishima also begins pulling the team up the hill. Tadu replaces Manami and starts pulling Hakone's team, which makes Makishima realize that they will fall behind. Tatakoro then steps ahead to start pulling the team, and even Naruko joins him to help him out. Sohoku's team makes a bullet train as they all race upwards together, and Fukutomi thinks about how terrifying Sohoku's team is since they all have a desperation to win. Finally, both the teams cross the peak, which leads to the final battle. Imazumi and Kinju race ahead, and Fukutomi also rushes ahead to compete against them for the Battle of the Aces. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. Like and subscribe the channel for more plot-filled recaps.